Reborn once again, I made sure to avoid every single path that led me to my wife. In my previous life, she convinced me to graduate and become a house husband. But this time, I secretly enrolled in graduate school. She said she wanted to support the family to help her first love, but I quietly transferred the money away. She told me she was finally ready to marry me, yet I chose to run in my past life. My child was switched with her first love's child. My real child died young, while I raised her first love's son into success. When I was old, the three of them pushed me off a mountain so they could reunite. When I opened my eyes again, I was back to the year of my graduation. Suddenly, my hands were full of pots, pans, and dishes. I froze, and everything clattered to the floor. The woman in front of me immediately frowned. "Justin, what are you doing?" "These are the kitchen supplies I prepared for you two. They're perfect for your new home." Robin's mother kept scolding me, pointing her finger in my face, but I was too caught up in the overwhelming joy of rebirth to care. Counting the days, today was the final deadline for graduate school registration. "Did you hear me?" She barked. "How can you take care of my daughter if you act like this?" At the mention of Robin, a graceful image flashed in my mind. In my past life, I used to think it was my greatest fortune to have chased after her and won her heart. She was beautiful, top of her class, and loved dancing. Her talent alone could have gotten her onto the provincial team. She also wrote songs for fun, and even a casual melody from her could become popular. Now she dreamed of being a doctor, and was personally chosen by a senior professor in the medical field as his last disciple. Everyone envied me, saying I was lucky to be engaged to her, that she genuinely liked me. But only I knew the truth behind her beauty. She was selfish and rotten to the core, remembering everything she did in my previous life. I clenched my fists, swallowed my disgust, and forced a smile. "Please go back first," I said. "I have something to take care of," without listening to her call me back. I sprinted straight to the internet cafe by the school gate. When my roommates saw me frantically opening the graduate school registration system, they were stunned. "Weren't you going to be a house husband?" one of them asked. I smiled. This is the great era of reform and opportunity. How could I trap myself in a tiny household? Pursuing graduate studies and serving my country, that's what I should be doing. They didn't expect such a sudden change, but their eyes lit up with admiration. When I finally submitted my registration, I let out a long sigh of relief. In my past life, I had listened to Robin's advice. After graduation, I used the inheritance my parents left me and became a house husband. With me taking care of everything, she had no worries at home. After graduation, she began her internship at a hospital, and under the guidance of that senior professor, her career soared. She was transferred to a big city hospital, and her first love, Domingo, followed her there. I stayed behind in the village. The next time we met was when she gave birth. I was in the same hospital room as her first love. Domingo sat leisurely at her bedside, resting, while I ran around fetching water, cleaning, and taking care of her. Even if Domingo only wanted a sip of water, she would struggle to get up and pour it for him. But if I so much as sat down for a moment, she'd lash out at me for being useless. My heart broke again and again, but I told myself that once the baby was born, I'd devote everything to raising the child. I watched that child grow from a babbling baby into a young man who grew more impatient with me each year, so much that he wouldn't even come home for the new year. I thought he was just busy until, at 65, I learned the truth. Robin, our son, and Domingo had been living together all along. My son even called another man dad. When I confronted them, he immediately stood in front of them, blocking me, and shoved me hard. "Dad, why can't you just stay in the village and grow old quietly? Why ruin our New Year reunion? I don't want people to know I have a father who's so ignorant, some village bumpkin." Behind him, Robin didn't even glance at me. She was comforting Domingo, who was pretending to cry. Then she looked at me coldly and said, "Divorce." I refused. Why should I? I'd spent my whole life caring for her family, raising our son, managing everything alone while she enjoyed her career. When her parents were sick, I was the one by their side. When our son grew up, I was the one who made him successful. Yet he now called me a fool. I shouted for justice, loud enough that even the neighbors came running. Eventually, they got tired of my outburst and pretended to compromise. Later, the four of us went mountain climbing together. That was when the three of them pushed me off the cliff. I clung to my son's leg, begging him to remember the bond between us. But he only looked at me with disgust and shouted, "You were never my real dad." The daughter my mom gave birth to, her daughter, died at birth. I was already a year old and sick, and my real father couldn't care for me. So I became your son instead. If I had a choice, I'd never have wanted you to raise me. At that moment, my world collapsed. Everything I had done, my sacrifice, my love, was just for someone else's family. I regretted everything. Why had I ever given up my dreams to become a house husband? In the end, my son kicked me off the cliff without hesitation. And when I opened my eyes again, I was back at the year of my graduation. When I returned to school, I saw Robin's mother frowning and muttering angrily. Robin stood quietly beside her, not saying a word. Domingo was there too. He gently patted Mrs. Kim's back, comforting her, then looked at me and said, "Look, brother-in-law is back. I'm sure he didn't mean to upset you." He reached out his hand and smiled softly. "Come on, apologize to Aunt Kim." I turned away, refusing to take his hand. Robin frowned in confusion. Mrs. Kim's expression darkened even more. "Don't waste your words on him," she snapped. Then she pulled 2 red envelopes from her pocket, smiling sweetly, one for Robin, one for Domingo. The three of them stood together, holding hands like a perfect family, completely treating me like an outsider. Domingo hesitated and glanced at me, but brother-in-law didn't get one. Mrs. Kim snorted coldly. Robin, hearing that, quickly took out a wad of cash. "He doesn't need this money," she said. "You're different. You're living alone, it's not easy." Take it. At first, I wanted to just stand there and watch. But suddenly, I lunged forward and grabbed her hand. "Robin, are you seriously giving my money to your first love right in front of me? Did you even ask me first?" Her face turned cold as she pulled the cash back. "You have so much money," she snapped. "I only took a little. He lost his parents and lives alone. How can you be so heartless not to help him?" Her words made me laugh bitterly. So he was an orphan and I wasn't? Did the Kim family think that just because I was rich, they could use my money to take care of someone else? Domingo's eyes welled with tears, startled by my anger. "Please, sister, brother-in-law," he said softly. "Don't fight because of me. If she doesn't want to give me the money, then I won't take it." With a sigh, he quickly turned and left. Robin immediately chased after him. In front of me, the two of them tugged back and forth until Domingo finally accepted the money. I was anxious and wanted to follow, but Mrs. Kim grabbed my arm tightly, stopping me. "Our family doesn't welcome narrow-minded men like you," she snapped. I tried to pull free, but couldn't. In the end, it was Robin who stepped between us and pulled us apart. She looked at me, her eyes cold. "Justin, I'm really disappointed in you," she said flatly. Then, as if making a reluctant compromise, she added, "Fine, if you don't want me to give it to him, I won't." I knew very well they'd never willingly let go of their walking money bag. After they left, I went straight to the bank. Robin knew the password to my card, and when I checked the balance, I found that huge amounts had already been withdrawn. Clearly, this wasn't the first time. I immediately changed the password. Then I went to find my teacher. She was the one who had always recognized my potential. All the awards I'd ever received in school were thanks to her guidance. When she heard I wanted to take the graduate exam, her eyes brightened. She asked if I'd be willing to follow her to South City University of Technology to study mechanical research under her own mentor. Coincidentally, they'd be leaving next month. She even said she'd personally teach me for free. My eyes lit up. Wasn't that the dream school I'd always wanted? I agreed again and again, almost trembling with excitement. During a short break before heading home, I started checking train ticket prices for next month. They weren't too high. I pressed my hands against my chest, barely able to contain my joy. Soon, I'd finally be free. When I got home, it was already late. The apartment wasn't big, but everything inside, from the furniture to the decorations, was done according to Robin's taste. Now that we were about to go our separate ways, I couldn't help feeling a bit of heartache. Mostly for the money I'd spent on it all. Thinking that, I immediately grabbed a bag and started packing up all the valuable things I could sell. While sorting through everything, I came across a scarf I'd embroidered for Robin. I'd always preferred working on big projects. It's not tiny, delicate work like that, so I wasn't good at embroidery. My fingers had been pricked countless times making it. She saw it once and called it ugly, ignoring the wounds on my hands. So dramatic, she'd said. If you can't focus, how's that my fault? My heart had broken at those words. Back then, I really thought I just wasn't good at it. But now looking closely, it actually looked quite nice. I sighed and set it aside, deciding to keep it for winter. After selling what I could and coming back, the apartment looked emptier. I calculated that when I finally left, I'd clear everything out, leave Robin nothing. She came home very late that night. Her cheeks were flushed, and I could tell she'd been drinking. I stayed out a bit, had dinner with them, she explained. Thankfully, I'd had the sense not to prepare dinner for her. Still, her perfume was so strong that it almost choked me. It was even stronger than it had been earlier in the day. They must have been sitting very close. She seemed to notice my silence and quickly took off her coat. He fell, and I helped him back. Don't overthink it, I simply replied, not making a fuss. After all, I'd seen this same act many times before. Domingo would always show up injured whenever Robin and I were alone. She'd insist she couldn't ignore someone who needed help after all. She was a doctor, and the ending was always the same. I'd watch her walk away with him, arm in arm, while I shouted myself hoarse. And she wouldn't even look back once. Anyone with eyes could see something was going on between them. Only I had been the fool. It had taken me an entire lifetime to see the truth. I said nothing more, just went back to my room and opened the book my teacher had given me to study. I had barely sat down when I heard the door open. Robin didn't even knock, she just walked right in. Startled, I stood up and quickly shoved my study materials out of sight. I didn't want her to know I was preparing for graduate school. She didn't seem to notice anything unusual. My mother picked an auspicious date for the wedding, she said casually. It'll be on the first day of next month. She wasn't asking. She was informing me. The first day of next month. That was the exact day I'd be leaving with my teacher. Perfect. I couldn't wait to see her face when I disappeared right before the wedding. I gave a nonchalant pretending to agree. She took it as normal and smiled. My mom sent those pots and pans for you, she added, stepping closer to hold my hand gently. I know you're not great at cooking, but that's okay. We can cook together in the future, all right? There was a softness in her eyes I rarely saw. In my previous life, she'd promised me the same thing. But after marriage, everything changed. She was always too busy to eat at home. Her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Kim, constantly scolded me for my terrible cooking, saying I embarrassed their family. When she heard about it, she only said, "Since you're home all day, just practice more. Don't upset the elders." Later I found out she cooked and did housework often but for Domingo. Even in old age, his hands were still soft and fair. Suppressing my disgust, I lowered my head and pretended to be shy. After chatting for a bit, she finally left. As soon as the door closed, I collapsed into a chair and let out a long breath. Everyone had always thought that, as an orphan with no one to rely on, I'd struck gold marrying Robin. That was why. In my past life, the wedding had been all about her. Even when people spoke to me, it was only to tell me to be obedient and grateful. Yet my grades at school had been no worse than hers. My family had been wealthy, and that wealth ended up supporting the Kim family for their entire lives. But in the end, the only title I earned was the man who married Robin Kim. This time, I didn't want that title. I wanted to live for myself. By the day before my departure, I had already sold everything in the apartment that could be sold. Robin rarely came home and didn't care about the place, so she hadn't noticed anything missing. She left all the wedding planning to her mother except for that day. She asked me to meet her at the bridal shop. When I arrived, she was sitting outside waiting. Just as I walked up, the curtain beside her opened, and out stepped Domingo. He was wearing a slim white suit, smiling brightly. "Look. Doesn't this suit look?" His voice stopped when he saw me. Robin looked up and immediately explained. Domingo was just trying on the suit for you. Don't misunderstand. You study engineering, you wouldn't understand design and aesthetics like he does. But Domingo's full makeup, styled hair, and smug smile told me he wasn't trying it on for me. Seeing my silence, Domingo put on a pitiful expression, like he was about to cry. Robin grabbed a gray suit and handed it to me. It was the color I hated most. I refused, but she pushed me toward the fitting room. Be good. Domingo wore this. It looked great. But I was taller and broader than him, so the suit didn't fit at all. Even the store clerk suggested changing it. I started to change out of it, but as I pulled off my pants, they caught on my underwear, and both slipped down. Suddenly Robin came in. Startled, I covered myself. Even though we had been husband and wife in my past life, in this one we were still technically strangers, but she was completely unfazed. What's there to be shy about? She said coolly, You'll have to show me sooner or later. Let me see why it doesn't fit. She walked right up, yanked my pants back on, then tugged hard at the jacket to force it closed. I took a sharp breath. It was so tight I could barely move, almost crying from the pain. I can't breathe. Then a sharp pain shot through my back. I felt something wet and cold. The clerk rushed in and gasped. There's blood. Are you crazy? If it doesn't fit, why are you forcing him to wear it? I'd hurt my back earlier while moving furniture, and now the wound had split open again. The pain was unbearable, bringing tears to my eyes. Domingo came over, pretending to help, but he didn't even close the curtain. Still, the pain was so intense that I didn't care about dignity anymore, in front of everyone. With the clerk's help, I shakily took off the outfit and changed back into my own clothes. Robin, perhaps feeling a flicker of conscience, helped me get a taxi and took me to the hospital to get my wound bandaged. My tears wouldn't stop, but inside, I felt strangely calm. Even the doctor was shocked when he saw my condition. He cleaned my wound carefully and scolded Robin sternly, asking what kind of girlfriend she was. Robin kept her head down, silent, looking guilty. In the end, she held my hand and murmured, I'm sorry. I just thought it looked good. That's why I insisted you wear it. Tomorrow, I'll get you a bigger one, okay? Even then, she only compromised a little. She still wanted me to wear that suit I hated. Quietly, I wiped away my tears and said softly, all right. Robin instantly looked up, smiling brightly. Great, I knew you wouldn't make a fuss about it. Of course, she thought it was great. After all, I didn't care about this wedding at all. Tomorrow, the messier it got, the better. But whatever guilt Robin had felt vanished the moment we got home and saw Domingo. He was squatting at my doorway, crying. I got kicked out by my landlord. The money you gave me, I couldn't pay up. Robin's first reaction was to look at me. You changed the bank password. My heart went cold. A suspicion slowly crept into my mind. What do you mean by that? She pulled her hand away from me and demanded, Why didn't you tell me you changed the password? Domingo was waiting for the money to rent a place. I was furious. What does his rent have to do with me? That money was left to me by my parents. So it was true Robin had been using my money to help Domingo rent a house. No wonder in my previous life, no matter how hard I tried to save, I could never withdraw a large amount. It must have been taken this way back then, to one bank card. Drained dry by her whole family, Domingo leaned on the wall, slowly getting up, his red, swollen eyes staring at me. What are you saying? Your money is Robin's money too, isn't it? She only helped me because she felt sorry for it. Was always under your name that she gave it. Sneered. What's the use of my name? This has nothing to do with me. You're stealing my money? Give it back. Domingo began to cry harder. I don't have anything to pay you back with. Then he threw himself into Robin's arms. Just as I was about to explode, a neighbor poked their head out and yelled, If you're going to fight, do it inside. For the sake of appearances, Robin quickly nodded and dragged us inside. Once the door closed, she wrapped her arms around Domingo, comforting him for a long time. In the end, against my will, she forced him to stay in my room. I sat silently in the living room for a long while. When Robin finally came out, she sat beside me and said, Why is your room so empty? I raised an eyebrow, surprised she noticed, and lied. "It's nothing. I just tidied up," she said. "I wanted to borrow some of your clothes for Domingo, but I couldn't find any." I gave a bitter laugh. No wonder. Good thing I had already packed everything. I stood up to grab some bedding and sleep in the living room, but she stopped me. "Domingo's had it rough. Tomorrow, he'll leave, all right? Don't be so petty, we're all adults here," I sneered. "Then use your own money to help him. Don't use mine. If you really feel bad for him, help him pay me back." I held out my hand to her. Robin's face turned red with anger. "You're truly unreasonable." She snapped, then stormed back into the room. I was relieved to finally have some peace. I laid out a blanket and made myself a bed on the floor. Just thinking about seeing Robin embarrassed tomorrow filled me with quiet satisfaction. By 5 in the morning, we were all up. Domingo, looking like he wanted to make up for something, volunteered to be the best man and busied himself helping me get ready. But no matter how he tried, nothing matched me. His suit was more extravagant than mine, his makeup more delicate. An outsider would think he was the groom. Mrs. Kim wanted a simple ceremony, so Robin and I were to leave together from the apartment. Just as we were about to step out, Robin's face darkened. She grabbed my hand. "Why did you secretly sign up for the graduate exam?" I froze for a moment, then forced myself to stay calm. "You must be mistaken." She pulled out her phone and showed me a message. "Isn't this you, Justin? On graduation day, you suddenly disappeared to an internet cafe? Wasn't it for this?" Her grip hurt my hand and I tried to pull away. "So what if it was? Why do you think you can control where I go?" "You're not allowed to go. In your dreams." Seeing the tension, Domingo stepped in to mediate. "Don't fight on such an important day. Brother-in-law, if you want to take the exam, take it. Why hide it from Robin? And didn't you promise after graduation to take good care of her? Why are you doing this?" I shot him a cold look. "If you want to take care of her, then you do it." My tone made him tremble. He looked at Robin, tears in his eyes, waiting for her to say something. But she didn't even glance at him. Her eyes stayed on me. "It's fine," she said calmly. "When the time comes, we'll go together. As husband and wife, we should always be side by side." She suddenly composed herself, grabbed my hand, and smiled brightly as we stepped out. Domingo tried to follow and sit beside her, but she pushed him away. "Take the next car," he blinked. "But didn't we agree? Don't waste time?" She cut him off coldly. Domingo didn't dare argue. When he got out of the car, he glared at me before reluctantly climbing into the next one. I closed the back door and sat in the front seat. Through the rearview mirror, I saw Robin's clenched fists. She was nervous and uneasy, just like always. I almost laughed. "Robin, what are you so afraid of?" When we arrived at the venue, Robin held my hand as we entered. As we passed Mrs. Kim, I heard her say in a displeased tone, "This outfit is far too inappropriate. He knows today's the wedding, yet he shows up looking like that." Domingo, sitting beside her, quickly said, "Auntie, don't blame Robin, it's my fault for not preparing it properly." Mrs. Kim's tone softened immediately. "How could it be your fault? He's just not suitable." I rolled my eyes. Robin tightened her grip on my hand and whispered, "You're the most handsome." When I looked at her, she tilted her head and smiled. Her words didn't sound fake, but they meant nothing to me anymore. Her voice was loud enough for Domingo to hear. He gave a cold snort, his gaze burning into my back. Finally, Robin and I stood before the officiant. My heart beat faster, not from nerves, but from anticipation. The thought of ruining everything in front of Robin, who cared so much about appearances, thrilled me. The officiant began the vows. When it was my turn, "Do you take her as your wife?" "I do not." The hall erupted in shock. Robin's eyes widened as if her whole world had just collapsed. "You misspoke, didn't you?" "Not at all," I said with a smile, grabbing the microphone. "Today's groom is someone else." At that moment, the video I'd prepared began playing intimate clips of Robin and Domingo. Everyone had thought she was the perfect fiancé, but the footage told a different story. I pulled the stunned Domingo onto the stage. "Look at him, his outfit's fancier than mine. His makeup's more refined. If he's not the groom, then who is?" The guests gasped. My God, who didn't see this coming? Unbelievable. Robin Kim's still tangled up with her first love. The video even showed a scene of them kissing in a classroom. The hall filled with awkward murmurs and gasps. Mrs. Kim panicked. Turn it off. Turn it off. But no one listened. While everyone was frozen in shock, I slipped on my running shoes and dashed out. By the time Robin came to her senses, security guards were already blocking her path. She couldn't reach me. The event planner, an old friend of my father's, had been helping me all along. Everything today had gone exactly as planned. Once I stepped out of the venue, I jumped into the car waiting for me and drove away. A new life, here I come. In my previous life, under Robin's control, I had become numb and obedient. Even when I won major engineering awards in college, she said, "What's the use of studying engineering? In the future, you'll still have to stay home and take care of the kids." She praised Domingo instead. He studied design, understood aesthetics, worked fast and well, and contributed to the household. I started to feel inferior and even tried studying design, only to become a laughingstock. I gave up the technological construction I had once been good at, but heaven gave me a second chance. In this new life, I saw things clearly. My life should have been full, meaningful, and vibrant. I could pursue a master's degree, maybe even a doctorate, and dedicate myself to the field I loved, maybe even contribute to my country someday. Holding my small bundle of belongings, I felt happiness bubbling up inside me. This feeling of freedom and independence was something I had never known before. When we reached the station, my teacher handed me a ticket, and I boarded the train beside her toward a brand new beginning. Watching the scenery drift by outside the window, I finally felt my heart relax completely. The journey to South City was long, but thankfully we had sleeper tickets. After traveling for a full day and night, we finally arrived at our destination after resting for a day. I invited my teacher and her professor out for a meal and bought some small gifts for the professor. I'd thought I might feel nervous and uneasy, but maybe because I'd already lived one whole life before, I was calm. I spoke confidently and naturally. The professor's eyes showed clear appreciation, which only made me feel more composed. In the end, we exchanged contact information. After that, we entered the intense phase of exam preparation. On the day before the new semester began in South City, I ran into Robin again. When I saw Robin again, it was at the campus infirmary. I hadn't expected it at all. After several days of sleepless work, I was dizzy, and the moment I saw her, my first instinct was to turn and run. But Robin immediately put down what she was holding and chased after me. "Don't go, okay? I actually knew you were studying here all along. I just didn't dare to disturb you." I kept thinking, if you ever needed help, maybe I'd finally get the chance to see you. Her voice was soft, full of forced emotion, disgusting. I tried to pull my hand away. I think I should go to an off-campus hospital instead. But she grabbed my arm tightly and insisted on checking me herself. When it turned out to be serious, she panicked and hurried me to a hospital outside the campus. I never thought I'd see the day she'd care about my health. But it was far too late for that now. Too tired to fight, I let her handle the tests. In the end, I even watched as she pulled out a handful of small bills to pay my medical fees. Without me, she had clearly grown poorer and poorer. Once, she'd never even had to think twice before paying for anything. Afterward, she carefully sat by my side, fed me medicine, and watched the nurse insert an IV. She held my hand and said softly that she only liked me, that everything with Domingo had been a mistake, and that she would never betray me again. Even the nurse overheard and said, "You should forgive your girlfriend, she seems like a good person." Where else could you find someone like that? I spoke faintly, without any expression. Yes, someone this rotten really is hard to find. The nurse froze, then quietly left the room. Robin's smile faltered and disappeared. After a long silence, she whispered, "I'm sorry. I just need you to give me one more chance." She grabbed my hand again. I frowned, completely fed up. "Please, just get lost." Then I pulled 100 yuan from my pocket and shoved it into her hand. That's not just for the medical bill, it'll cover your expenses for a while. Isn't it money you're after? Consider it a bit of charity. Robin stared at me, stunned. Is that really how you see me? How else? I sneered. How much longer are you going to pretend to be righteous? Fraud. My words made her face flush red. She stood up, sat down, stood again, then finally whispered, I'll prove myself. After that, she sat down and refused to leave, no matter what I said. I closed my eyes and ignored her. Later, I texted my classmates to tell them I'd taken leave to see a doctor. I hadn't expected that once they found out, they would all rush to the hospital to visit me. They crowded into the room. Pushing Robin aside into the next bed, chatting around me and asking how I was doing, I smiled and told them I was fine, that an old acquaintance had brought me here. Only then did they glance briefly at Robin. Not one of them smiled at her. They all turned their attention back to me. So this is the crazy ex-girlfriend you mentioned? Tisk, she really does look the part. Manipulative, pitiful, she won't meet a good end. Robin tried to defend herself, but every time she spoke, my classmates shut her down immediately, watching everyone stand by me. Speaking up for me, I felt a deep sense of warmth. In my past life, I had worked hard, always careful, yet ended up alone. Even my death had been pitiful. Wasn't the cruelty of that life still repeating itself here? Robin saw I wasn't responding. At first, she looked panicked, wanting to explain, but in the end, she just deflated completely. She insisted on staying on as the school doctor. As much as I disliked her, I had to admit it was a waste of her medical skills to stay in such a small position. Her professor came looking for her many times, but she refused him every time. Saying she wanted to stay and atone, I was disgusted after returning from the hospital. She began leaving fruit and snacks outside my dorm room, everyday things suitable for me to eat. I never accepted any of it. I gave it all to the dormitory auntie, and so we remained in a silent stalemate for a month. Then Domingo appeared. He showed up limping near campus, asking around for Robin. Lately, she'd been clutching her stomach often, unable to meet my eyes. I noticed the slight swell of her belly at least 3 months along. Counting back, it matched exactly when Mrs. Kim had been hospitalized. The realization filled me with disgust. I anonymously told Domingo. When he found out, he came storming to the campus gates. They argued and pulled at each other right there. I happened to be nearby waiting for my takeout and watched as Domingo shouted through tears. I don't care you're carrying my child. My leg got ruined looking for you, so you have to take responsibility for me. Robin noticed me watching and turned toward me, pleading silently for help, but it had nothing to do with me. When my food arrived, I picked it up and left without a word. Later, I saw a new school doctor in the infirmary. It turned out Domingo, desperate and jobless, had gone to the principal and begged him to fire Robin so she could stay home and care for him instead. The principal reluctantly agreed. Eventually, Robin was forced to marry Domingo. Even when her professor came looking for her again, Domingo turned him away every time, afraid the woman he'd finally trapped might escape, with no other choice. Robin gave birth and ended up working near home, living an ordinary and unremarkable life. As for me, after graduation, I threw myself into my work, contributing to my country's construction projects.